All right, let me just transfer this over to the other screen here. Again, welcome to this is an IB informational session about the IB certificate for teaching and learning at University of Michigan. This meeting is targeted specifically for students that are potentially considering the SECMAC program, the secondary masters for teaching. Again, my goal here is just to help educate you about some of the options, or one of the great options here at the University of Michigan. I think this option is a great pathway for students and people returning to get their master's in teaching, because it really helps them. You know, it does, I think, fit into a candidate or teaching candidate, whether that's at an IB school or a non-IB school that has this level of training. This extra certificate is going to come to the table with a lot to offer a school and a lot to offer its students. I really firmly believe in this. I've lived this for the last 10 to 12 years in teaching and learning. And I sit on a number of interview committees, a lot of different schools. And I will tell you that seeking out individuals that have an IB certificate or IB experience is something that draws me to their application right away, and almost invariably leads to a first, if not a second round interview. And it also allows them to participate in a school setting right away. So I'm going to share a screen here real quick. If in this journey, my microphone or my video gets slow, just let me know in the chat and I can turn my video off so I can allow the stream to be a little more focused. Okay. Good. Okay, so again, thinking about the teaching and learning certificate, I'm going to just start with anything that we should really be doing is should be centering around the why. So I'm going to just flip up here the IB mission statement here about what the IB actually aims to do in part of education. So then I'm going to just ask you to take just about a minute or so to read through the mission statement, and I want you to be able to identify what it is that speaks to you as a potentially teacher of young people. And then I would also want you to think about, the second thing I'd like you to think about would be, what do you envision about this mission is difficult for schools to achieve? So something that draws you to it, like, oh, I'm interested in that. And then the second thing would be, what are schools going to have a hard time doing in this mission statement? Okay, so just give about 30 seconds to a minute to take a look at it and read through this. Okay, we're just going to bounce around because a central component to the IB experience is student voice. Everything is really geared around the center of our work is really the student. So I'm going to kind of ask you, I'm going to put you on the spot here and ask you to either comment on something that you were drawn to, or an element that you see schools are going to be hard, or it's going to be hard for schools to do. So I'm just going to go based on the names that I see on the screens. So I'll do my best to not mispronounce anybody's name. I'm going to start with Stella. Either something that you were drawn to or something you think is going to be difficult.
I just kind of hopped in, but I think something that might be difficult would be maybe like the rigorous assessment component, because I know assessments aren't always equitable or equal for different students and can be hard to implement in schools.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally true. And I love the elements actually working with IB assessments that are really focused on a growth-oriented mindset. So much feedback occurs that you're really able to differentiate between students while still holding a high expectations. Yeah, all right. V, how about you?
Okay, hoping this, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Bless. All right. So based on this and also a little background knowledge of IB, the fact that the organization works with schools, government, and international organizations is a lot of collaboration. So I imagine that there's just a lot to factor in there, especially when we consider that this program is in a lot of different places. And the idea is that the rigor should be the same everywhere. And then also something that draws me to it is just that I would hope to use this teaching internationally or in internationally minded schools in the US.
Sure, yes, and certainly being an employee of IB, I do school visits, I examine, I teach workshops on how to have new teachers in psychology and coordinators do their jobs. I mean, I have people from all over the globe in my sessions, and it is really refreshing. And I will also say that even all the way up through the ranks of IB, they really try and have teachers and principals that are living and breathing the program are making the decisions. Yes, there's a decision-making organization, but at every step along the way, you are empowered as teachers to be involved, and it's so different. It's so different. So, Montana, how about you? What's something that you were drawn to, or you think might be a challenge?
I think one thing I was drawn to was sort of developing intercultural understanding and respect, in addition to sort of creating that sort of I think dialogue between different types of students and developing sort of an understanding of different kinds of people can be really useful, and especially in an international context. I think that can really provide a lot for students who sort of are only usually exposed to a typical education setting from where they live or what they know. So.
Yeah, I can't say the number of times I talk about the first real verb in the mission statement: aims to develop, right? That is so central, right? Wherever you are at, it is about developing teachers, developing students, developing schools and culture. Oh my gosh, it like gets me excited to do this work. And that really is, I think, intentional choice here about developing is the central and first real action verb in the mission statement. I love it. Let's see, William.
I would say that the fact that the programs are international definitely would make it difficult to attain those standards while also attaining the like national standards or like state standards. So yeah, just like parallel standards that you have to achieve in the program.
Yeah, that is a challenge. It is a challenge. Oftentimes we think that IB is very rigorous in terms of like structured, and we will find through our journey together, if you choose to do the certificate about that, it's actually pretty flexible, and it looks at transcending conceptual understandings, which, whether you end up in, like I have a friend that teaches in Abu Dhabi, friends that teach in Japan, friends that teach in Australia, to all over the United States in this program, and they're able to adapt it and modify it. Ashley, how about you? What's something you're drawn to or you think might be a challenge?
I was kind of drawn to this idea of like developing caring students. I think a lot of the times in different areas, like the kind of like caring or emotional aspect to education can kind of be lost. So I appreciate that that's right there in the mission statement.
And it's this pathway of doing a certificate, you'll see it's built into the assessment, it's built into the written curriculum, it's built into the taught curriculum and the assessed curriculum. Kids can't get out of this IB diploma program or the MYP without developing their personal selves. It is magical. As a dad of my own 3 boys, right, and as a guardian of children, right, like it's not just academics. It is about how do we build community and take action. This is a civics course. Like this whole program is a civics course. Right? How do we be better versions of ourselves, and how do we grow? All right, let's see. And I'm sorry, I don't want to mispronounce your name. I'm not going to try and mispronounce it. Go ahead.
That's okay. It's Kanegi. My first name's Andrew.
Okay.
I'm going to piggyback off of Montana here and say the thing that drew me in was better and more peaceful world through intercultural understanding and respect. I think that's what drew me into teaching is being able to teach understanding of the world and how do we get to a more peaceful resolution. So I think it's important to instill on the people that you teach that your background is unique to yourself, but other people are coming from other backgrounds that aren't necessarily the same to you. So getting into that mindset is very important to me, and that's what drew me.
Awesome. And regardless of the content you're teaching, of chemistry to physics to language or French or Spanish or to psychology or whatever, right? This element of better humanity, a common humanity, is an important part of this course. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen because it just stopped sharing. I'm gonna try and stop sharing it while we're waiting for technology to reload here. I want to just kind of contextualize this. Our conversations are really reflective of some of the experiences we're going to look for you to engage in as a student, and then also as a leader of young people, is that we honor and create a space for the voices of individuals. And we build structures and systems in place that engagement and personalization is throughout the programming. It's messy, it's hard, it's difficult, but like that's our work, right? Is how do we don't shy away from hard things, we lean into them. And that is a really central part of the IB philosophy, is that we're dealing with tough stuff, tough decisions, tough challenges, and we don't shy away from that. We lean into that, and we help our young humans lean into it as well, right? We can think about, our avoidance cycles that we may have, or we see in the students or in our own friends and our families, right? And we communication is just as much of a central part of this work as the content itself. All right, we're gonna try and share the screen again here because I know you guys are on a tight timeline. I want to make sure we get to some of the other elements of the program. We wanted to really start with that qualitative element first, though. Okay, so if we could just zoom out to the context of IB programs in the United States, we're pushing on now 50 plus years of IB programming. Can I just make sure I'm sharing the screen? It's got a PowerPoint on it. Okay, thank you. So there's a huge increase of IB education across the globe. In Michigan alone, there are 93, and it's actually that number is now higher, number of IB programs in the state of Michigan. We recognize that some of this comes back as a push back to like this standardized testing, rote memorization, in some ways, right, the more traditional, as a former AP teacher as well, I will say, like this rote memorization and just mass acquisition of knowledge, but doing little with it, right? This is a push back against that kind of standardized testing culture. And then also that universal, like there's a singular way to do things. So there's a singular body of knowledge. And it really is pushing back against that and really embracing multiculturalism, the university's diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice work. These are things really parallel with the overall mission of the university as well. Again, as prospective employees that are going to school to get career pathways too, again, I will say that there are so many job interviews that I sit on where, about 2 years ago, I think in my school district, we interviewed 96 teachers for one social studies position. There's a lot of people. And I can remember there were 4 individuals that had IB experience or IB education training like this. And in a pool of, we interviewed 96, there were 100 and some applicants. So in a big, huge pool, we pulled more applicants, and those individuals that had that certificate were given that at least that first shot. And honestly, we're given a second shot or a second interview because we wanted to see them in action, right? Not just the first 5 to 10-minute quick interview. We want to see how do you incorporate the philosophy and approach of IB into your actual everyday classroom. And again, it's a chance for you as an applicant. We know as HR directors, as principals, as teachers sitting on these committees, we know a student that comes with IB or a teacher that comes with IB experience or IB training has already had some difficult thinking, has done some difficult thinking, has had tough conversations with themselves, are going to come out and be reflective and are going to be leaders. And that's really important. We want even inexperienced teachers to veteran teachers to come to the table offering to be contributors at the school. Right? We're not going to wait for somebody else. We're going to take the action because that's how we make things better, right? As we take action, we reflect, we engage, we do. And that is something I think built into this program, this IB Certificate in Teaching and Learning, where to give you those tools to support you in doing that work. We're going to give you the confidence that you've already done some of this deep thinking on assessment, on written curriculum, that's going to allow you to just thrive. And whether that's your first year or your second year of teaching, that you're going to have these skills right away out of the gate, that's going to allow you to be a successful teacher, not just a desirable applicant, that's a given, but that you're going to be allowed to be successful right as you start. So there's just, I share this slide with you just because there are a significant number of schools in Michigan alone, let alone the nation, that are moving to become IB certified. All right. Okay, so some kind of, bigger overarching themes here. And I'm going to actually just be quiet here for just another minute because I want you to kind of process through some of these things. So I'm going to shut up for about a minute. I'm going to ask you to read through these questions. And again, in your own head, like you just be reflecting which one of these is the most appealing to me. Okay, so I'm shutting up. I'll give you about a minute to read these questions. All right, so as I read that, I don't see a ton of references to content there. I don't see a lot of references to academic standards. I see a lot of reference to being great people. That is so central to our work, right? Content is the vehicle with which we teach young people to be amazing humans, right? We will individually, as people that love our content and love our disciplines, we will share that passion with them. We will share that excitement. It's nerdy and we love it, right? That's who we are and what we bring to the table, but that's not our real goal if we think back to that mission statement. So you can kind of, again, as you process through and think about this certificate like, puts these questions at the forefront of our conversations. You will learn your content, right? Like you've learned your content, you're coming with an undergraduate degree, specialized courses, more advanced than you will probably ever teach at the high school level. This is going to help you about how do we, again, use the disciplines that we love, work to transform young people into critical thinkers that are caring about the greater world and that are action, like people that are agents of change. And this fits so well with the diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice work at the university. They're really pretty well aligned. Okay, so what does this mean for us? All right, so Swanson, you've got me interested. I'm kind of intrigued. I showed up to this meeting. I wanted to learn more. What does this mean for you? So over the course of your 4 semesters, I always forget how they count them. Tim, it's 4. Yeah, okay. I know there's like summer 1, summer 2. So and over the course of your 4 semesters, we have created a series of at your own pace modules that are created in Canvas, and they are essentially one module essentially per semester that work to support you and enhance and further support the work that you're doing in your coursework. They're very intentionally designed by Dr. Kulikin, who's she's the world language kind of program lead for secondary education. And then also myself as an IB educator, these have been designed to work in conjunction with the things that you're doing in your School of Ed classes. So that when you're in your field work, your practicums, your field placements, that you have these opportunities to engage your master teachers, your mentor teachers with tough conversations, right? To get the nuance and the complexity of things that are beyond just teaching lessons or standards or assessment. That's really again about pushing you to become not just an okay teacher your first year, but to be a leader and best as you exit U of M and you head off to your schools and you have hundreds of humans in front of you. So these are done essentially each semester. You have one module that's worked into your coursework. It's worked at your own pace. So some students will do an assignment here or there. We give guidelines to spread them out so that you're not cramming anything. And truthfully, I give you a lot of feedback. I think that you can see even from this 15 minutes with me, I am deeply invested in the future of education, right? Like I want you to not just be like an okay teacher. Like we're setting the bar, right? Rigorous expectations for you going out and being a contributor to your school. Feedback comes from me to help you where you're at, right? And so V might be somewhere different than Ashley, than Montana, right? You guys might be all different places. Feedback is meant to support you and guide you and challenge you. And that's really important. So you get these modules, 1 per semester. They have some reflections. They have some small tasks that are going to be paralleled to the work that you're doing in your field placements and then also your classes as well. But most of them require, I would say they probably require maybe 5 hours worth of work over the course of a semester, right? The reflections is what they largely are. And so with that, it's about slowing you down, ask you to think about the qualitative elements of your work amongst all of your assignments for your other classes. It's asking you to zoom out and think again, am I interested in content first? Am I interested in how do we transform young humans into great adults? And it's just enough of a slowdown, pumping the brakes to say, all right, I got to zoom out and I got to think about how do we get kids to be curious, to be globally minded, to be reflective, to be caring, to make the world a better place. And this does that. So over the course of the semester, you might have anywhere from 6 to 10, we actually call them tasks. They're not even necessarily full assignments that you do. They're largely reflections, and they're asking you to engage with some of the documents from IB, apply them to your local scenario and to your personal experiences, do some reflection and submit. It actually leads to really great component of your portfolio that you'll create at the end of your time here in the SECMAC. So if you are admitted and accepted, this will be one of the tools that will also, as you're thinking about applying to schools, it'll be some artifacts that you can show and demonstrate, and they're kind of artifacts of your thinking, not just artifacts of lesson planning, but the artifacts of the hard and challenging cognitive work that you've done. If you are interested in this, and I will work to send this information out to you as well, this is a follow-up. If you're interested in this, you will essentially email myself or Dr. Kulkin. We'll have this information available to you as well, and we'll get you enrolled. We'll get you enrolled in the first module. And once we actually open it, you'll get a welcome invite and that you would enroll in this. There is no university tuition due. Like, this is essentially largely a free certificate from the University of Michigan. There is a fee associated with it though, and that's at the end of the third module. If you complete it, then you will pay us a certificate fee essentially to IB saying, like, we are certifying that you have done your training. This is like a training that you would do through the International Baccalaureate organization. And it's essentially just that formal certification that you can list on your resume or your CV, submit as you're applying to schools and say, look, I've done formal training with IB. Okay, I just threw so much at you, right? Lots of stuff. And I know there's gonna be additional questions. And we'll make sure you get this, but my email is here. My name is Casey Swanson. There is no N at the end of this. There is another person that works for University of Michigan that has C Swanson at UMich. So mine is no N there, but we'll make sure we get this information to you. And I think as we leave here, right, we wanna make sure we're reflecting with you about, right, you'll get more mentorship from this program, right, from somebody in the field, both an IB as a mentor teacher. You'll get a zoomed out perspective on not just content teaching, which will do a lot of practicum. You'll focus a lot on your methods for your social studies or your science courses, world language, but you're gonna focus on educating the whole child in this program, and you're gonna get good detailed feedback, right? And again, I think about here is like, I'm a mentor, potential mentor for you, but I don't have a grade. I don't have any sort of evaluatory role. My job is to help transform you into a better teacher so that when you're out there with my I should say, like, community members, our 13 and 15 and 16-year-olds, that you're gonna hit the ground running right away. You're gonna have some confidence to do it. And I will say, like, working with so many schools and traveling across the country, visiting schools, seeing the transformative nature that bringing an IB program to a school can do, like, it's very quite emotional for me in terms of like, wow, look at this hard work that schools and teachers are doing for their kids. It is so magical that I hope that, you get to be a participant in this program, but also the school, and know that even if you end up not at an IB school, this work is going to allow you to transform your classroom. Okay, with that, we're pretty close to our time. Hopefully we've established that you're welcome to reach out with questions, that I care about your potential enrollment in this program. It's exciting. It's super exciting. So we will work to get you information, presentation, and once you get your email or my email, you are certainly welcome to reach out and ask questions. I love being nerdy and talking about this stuff. Oh my gosh, it's the best. It's the best. So yes, that's it from my end. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And I don't know if Tim, if you're directing, if people have a sequence they need to go to, I don't know how this works for the larger day.
We actually don't have another event bookending this one. So if people do have questions, and Casey, if you're available, we can certainly extend for a few minutes.
I'm good. Yep. I'm happy to talk about this stuff. Oh my gosh.
This might be kind of a broad question. I just like the district that I went to high school in didn't have any, like none of the schools had any type of IB classes. So I'm really unfamiliar with like what an IB class looks like. Like, do you know how
Great.
like how an IB class would look different than a regular class?
Oh my gosh, yes, I could go on for about how much time do you have, right? So, I also used to teach AP psychology. I teach intro psychology. I've taught like many iterations. I will say, are you familiar with like an AP course setup? Okay, so I taught AP psychology, and there were 1,673 terms, and they had to do nothing with, right? It was like a dictionary, right? So actually, in my IB psychology course, I have 2 years to teach about 70% of the AP content. Let me just stop and think about that, right? Like 70%, and I have 2 years to do it. What that leads to is just so much more in depth. One of the things that is very different in all IB courses, there's a lot of epistemological framework of how do we know the things that we know in psychology, in history, in physics, in science, in language. The focus on language acquisition, if any of you are real language teachers, is very different, right? We don't, in many American schools, we teach this linear progression of language, right? We don't do that in real life. Like we don't say to 4-year-olds, like, you're not allowed to talk to that 6-year-old over there. No, it's like play and messiness, and that's how we learn language. There's this approach to, if we go back to the mission statement, I think Montana referenced this, like aims to develop, right? We build and we scaffold lesson planning so that over the course of these 2-year courses that students take in the junior year, or if you end up doing the MYP program, the 9th and 10th grade years, you're building this with the idea of this is the long game, right? It's a semester class and then we're done. See you later. You know, you're on your way. And even I would say a fundamentally a difference is that if I am charged with my written curriculum, my taught and assessed curriculum to help you become a better person, not just a better student, that looks differently as a teacher. When I have a student for 16, I may or may get to know them. I may or may not get to know them, right? I may or may not hit them with some speed bumps in their life. When I have students for 2 years, it's expected that I'm going to hit some speed bumps with them. Not necessarily interpersonally between them and I, but like you're with a 16 to an 18-year-old for 2 years, right? Stuff happens in their life. And you have this opportunity to be a mentor and a shepherd, or, you know, we call it pastoral care at my school, right? You have this opportunity to do this work where, again, like your job is to impart mentor as well, right? So they come on the other end of this, right? To go attack the world and be open and curious and go out there and be confident in themselves. When I work with students for 2 years, we start the process off very differently versus if I have somebody like, oh, I'm going to see you, I'm going to have you for 16 weeks. I'm not going to be vulnerable. I'm not going to put myself out there the same way that, you know, like I'm going to be working with you for 18 months, right? Like if you do this, like I'm working with you for 4 semesters, right? That's very different than when you have a professor for a semester. And just as you can imagine at the collegiate level, if I know I'm going to have a professor for 3 or 4 semesters in my major, that's a different relationship than I've got this basic requirement, you know, whatever class that I've got to take. I'm never going to take a chemistry class again, or I'm never taking a history class again. That's a different approach, right? And so that's a qualitative difference as well. There's a greater focus on writing as well. Like tremendously more focus on research and on writing and written communication and oral communication. What discipline are you in? Ashley, what do you see yourself like teaching?
History and social studies.
Right. So very, very different in terms of the social sciences and the social studies. I mean, kids are doing, it's an expectation that students are doing research in every one of their classes. They will write actually something called an internal assessment, which is a research paper. In psychology, we actually replicate a cognitive psych experiment. We go through independent review board, we go through experimental design, we go through publishing, we go through conducting experiments, analyzing the data, right? We run inferential stats tests, and then we publish just like we would in a journal. Like that's one class. They're gonna do something like that in every class, whether that's fieldwork, an investigation. They're gonna do something that's very authentic in that way. Well, if that's gonna count a significant portion of their IB exam score, I'm not just gonna spring it on them, right? I'm gonna be developing those skills over the course of 2 years. For you students that might have participated in some sort of undergraduate research opportunity, we think about if you had previous lab experience in high school, or an undergrad, like you were okay with it. But some people, as they start undergraduate research opportunities, if they've never experimented, if never done this work, it's really hard and it's awkward for them, and it leads to low self-esteem. I liken this like riding a bike, right? The first time you ride a bike, right, you expect bloody elbows and scraped up knees. Like that's part of the developmental process, right? The first time you do research, whether that's in undergrad, graduate school, high school, it's going to be messy, right? But again, in the high school setting, when you're doing this with students, is like you get to be messy with someone that's going to be with you for 2 years, that's going to shepherd you through this journey, that's going to say like, yeah, well, I'm going to expect you to get some scraped up elbows and knees, but we promise not to quit because I'm here with you for 2 years, right? That takes a lot of trust, a lot of relationship components to it. And so that when we do matriculate, and these are whatever field you go into, this opportunity to engage in research and written communication and reflection, I don't care what discipline you go into, you're helping students develop these skills across all content areas. And so again, if you were in a school and actually, if you were a student in my school, you'd be getting the same experience from 6 to 8 teachers, right? Where you have that ability to take risks and trust, where even in your weak areas, you know, you like history, but maybe you're not into mathematics, right? Where you've got a math teacher that is also thinking about how do I help Ashley become a better human, and reflect and learn that even if I don't like it, I can do hard things through perseverance and through grit and through determination, right? We don't have to love every subject. Well, we want to think and we want to work and we want to work hard in those areas. And then also on the opposite of that, like if you love history, you have opportunities to accelerate and go deeper in those history classes. Like, let's be honest, like content is awesome, right? Like for us, we have 2 years with students, we're going to talk about our content and be passionate and nerdy. And oh my goodness, who doesn't want to do that, right? And you know that you may have students in your classroom that are like, I didn't really like psych, it was the class that was available for me. Because I have time and a relationship, I might be able to inspire a little bit of that love for my discipline. All right, let's see. Got a question in the chat I want to make sure I get to.
It's actually verbal.
Yeah.
So I just was wondering, I'd like to pursue this certificate. I'm wondering, does it make an impact on where we're placed for things like field experiences? Like, do we have to do a field experience in IB school?
Great question. From my understanding, I believe the SECMAC students are going to all be placed at a school called Scarlett Middle School, which is a school in Ann Arbor for their field placement. Now, it might be a little bit different with COVID, like COVID situation. I mean, you physically may not be the placement. It depends on what their school is like and where you're at. But we do try, especially with our SECMAC students, try and get students connected to an IB school. That's my understanding of it. Now, I don't deal directly with some of these elements of placements, but that is, I believe, our intention is we have some schools that we partner with as the larger school of ed. There might be others. I don't know if Tim is able to answer this question more, Dr. Cooligan, or some of the other people that are in charge of the SECMAC might be able to answer those questions. I don't know that for sure, but I do know that some of our partner schools are IB schools. And IB is a K-12 continuum school district. And so they have lots of resources. And actually, Southeast Michigan, like we have tons and tons of schools in the area that are doing this program or doing these programs. Yeah, I don't have a definitive answer. I'm sorry, I just don't deal with those elements.
Yeah, and I'll add on to that unfortunately, your question has all the same variables of any questions about placements right now. We would love to be able to give you a certain answer, but sadly, we don't know just yet. Now, hopefully, things are going to start to crystallize soon. And as soon as those things do start to become certain, you're going to be hearing about it from the program staff.
Yeah, and I would say specifically with this relationship with this program, we have student teachers so there's an undergrad element to this as well, and some secondary MAC. So people are at different schools, and so regardless of your placement, right, we can reflect through these lenses. And this is good teaching overall, right? This is not about like, oh, because you're in the school, this is how you want to teach. This is really research based, and it's really focused on a lot of the same work that you're already doing in your other classes. So it's going to spiral and loop in there. So it's, again, working together to support your work. I really don't, like, it really is like, obviously I bring some bias to this as a practitioner, but I would also say, like, for the minimal amount of time that it ends up really being to have this certificate, that's going to communicate so quickly to schools of, hey, I have this thing, I've done this deep work and thinking, and knowing I'm the opposite of the hiring committee, right? If Ashley or V were to send me, or whoever would send me an email saying, hey, IB coordinator, why do you know I applied for this job? I've got this training. Right away, I'm on the phone with my principal and my HR director saying, hey, make sure V's application gets pulled. I want to take a look at them. Like, it's just that instantaneous. And working with enough schools in the area that also know, like, if I can have something that's got this training, like, you just have saved me the time and energy. And not that we won't spend that, but like this idea of like, you were coming in ready to go, right? You did this, which says a lot about which communicates something about your interest as a teacher as well, right? And in short interviews, right, we don't always have time to flush that out. This is a message, very direct, that I care about not just being an okay teacher, but being a leader and best, right? That's what we're about at U of M, right? And why some of you chose this place to do your SecMac, or apply for your SecMac, I should say. All right, if you have specific questions, you're welcome to stick around. I can chat for a while, but I recognize that we all have lives as well. And you probably got other things to do as well. So, but you're welcome to stick around and ask questions. Otherwise, you're welcome to duck out. Take care. Thanks for coming and making time in your day. You know, we're busy people.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Take care, everybody.
Take care, Ashley. Take care.